You didn't spend a single dollar today. You didn't gamble. You didn't invest badly. You didn't make a single financial mistake. And yet, right now, as you're watching this, your money is worth less than it was this morning. Not because of anything you did. Not because the stock market crashed. Not because your bank made a mistake. Because of a system so normalized, so embedded into daily life, that most people go their entire lives without ever stopping to ask why it exists or who it actually benefits. It's called inflation, and the way it actually works is nothing like what you were taught. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how your money loses value, the real mechanism, not the textbook version. You're going to understand who controls it, who benefits from it, and why governments don't just stop it. And you're going to walk away understanding something most people with college economics degrees still get wrong. Let's start with what inflation actually is, because the definition most people have is incomplete in a way that matters. Most people think inflation means prices go up. That's not wrong, but it's looking at the effect and mistaking it for the cause. Here's a better way to think about it. Imagine the entire economy is a pizza. Every dollar in existence is a slice claim, a ticket that entitles you to a portion of that pizza. Now imagine the government prints twice as many tickets. The pizza hasn't grown, but now there are twice as many claims on it. So each ticket is worth half as much pizza as it used to be. That's inflation, not prices going up. Purchasing power is going down. The price tag at the grocery store isn't what changed. What changed is what your dollar can command. And this has been happening consistently, deliberately, by design, every single year for over a century. In 1913, $1 could buy what $30 buys today, not because goods got more expensive in some natural, neutral way, but because the number of dollars in circulation has expanded steadily and relentlessly for over 110 years. The dollar in your wallet right now has lost more than 96% of its purchasing power since the Federal Reserve was created. Read that again, 96%. So how does this actually happen? Who pulls the lever? The answer is the central bank. In the US, that's the Federal Reserve. In Europe, the European Central Bank. Every major economy has one. And their primary tool for managing the economy is controlling the money supply. Here's the mechanism in plain terms. When the government needs to spend money it doesn't have, on stimulus, on military spending, on infrastructure, on bailouts, it issues bonds. Think of bonds as IOUs. The government says, lend us money today, we'll pay you back with interest later. Now, who buys those bonds? Sometimes regular investors, sometimes foreign governments. But the Federal Reserve can also buy them. And here is the critical part. The Fed doesn't use money it already has. It creates new money, digitally, with a keystroke, and uses that new money to buy the bonds. New money enters circulation. More dollars exist than existed yesterday, and every existing dollar is now worth fractionally less. This process has a technical name, quantitative easing, and it sounds so abstract and bureaucratic that most people tune out the moment they hear it, which is not an accident. But the effect on your wallet is not abstract at all. Between 2020 and 2022 alone, the US Federal Reserve created roughly $5 trillion in new money. $5 trillion injected into an economy that had the same amount of goods and services to offer. All those new dollars chasing the same supply of things. Prices spiked at rates not seen since the 1980s. Groceries, rent, gas, cars, all of it shot up simultaneously. That wasn't a coincidence. That was the mechanism working exactly as physics demands it must. But here's what almost nobody talks about. The inflation didn't hit everyone equally. The new money enters the system at the top. Banks get it first. Large financial institutions get it second. Asset owners, people who own stocks, real estate, businesses, they hold things whose prices rise with inflation, so their wealth inflates alongside it. The person sitting in a savings account, their dollars are already in circulation. They get no new money. They just get to watch their purchasing power quietly evaporate. Economists call this the Cantillon Effect, named after an 18th century French-Irish banker who first described it. The closer you are to the source of new money, the more you benefit. The further away you are, the more inflation eats you alive, and you never see it happening. Now, a fair question. Why don't governments just stop inflating the currency? Why not keep the money supply stable? Because inflation is extraordinarily useful to the people who control it. First, debt erosion. Governments carry massive national debts. Inflation quietly shrinks the real value of that debt over time. A government that borrows $1 trillion today and inflates at 3% annually is effectively paying back less real value with each passing year. Inflation is a hidden debt repayment mechanism, paid not by the government but by every citizen holding dollars. Second, economic stimulus. A small, controlled amount of inflation encourages spending. If you know your money will be worth slightly less next year, you're incentivized to spend or invest it now rather than sit on it. Economists generally believe 2% annual inflation keeps economies moving. The problem is that controlled is easier said than done. Third, and this is the one nobody says out loud, inflation is a tax that requires no vote. No politician has to stand up and say, "We are taking 3% of your savings this year." It just happens, quietly. Invisibly, spread across every dollar held by every person in the country. It is the most politically painless form of government revenue ever devised. So what can you actually do about it? The first and most important thing is to understand that keeping money in cash, in a savings account, earning 0.5% interest while inflation runs at 3% is not safe. It feels safe. It looks safe. The number doesn't go down. But in real terms, in terms of what that money can actually buy, you are losing ground every single year. Safety is an illusion when the unit of measurement itself is shrinking. This is exactly why wealthy people don't hold their net worth in cash. They hold assets. Real estate tends to appreciate with inflation. Equities, stocks and companies that can raise prices as their costs rise. Commodities, productive businesses. Things. The rich have learned generation after generation that in a world of persistent inflation, owning things beats holding money. Then there's Bitcoin, which was explicitly designed as a response to this system. A hard cap of 21 million coins. No central bank. No printing press. No Cantillon Effect. Whether it succeeds as a long-term store of value is genuinely debated. But the problem it was designed to solve is real, and the design choices reflect a direct understanding of exactly what we've been talking about. And at the geopolitical level, something larger is shifting. Countries like China, Russia, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia are actively building trade frameworks that bypass the US dollar. The dollar's status as the world's reserve currency is what allows the US to export inflation globally, to print money without immediately destroying its own purchasing power. Because the rest of the world absorbs the excess. If that status erodes, the inflation the US has been exporting for decades comes home. That conversation is happening right now, in finance ministries and central banks, largely out of sight of the public. Here is the thing nobody tells you. Inflation is not a natural force, like gravity or weather. It doesn't just happen. It is the output of specific decisions made by specific institutions with specific interests. And those institutions are not primarily organized around protecting the purchasing power of your savings account. That doesn't make inflation purely evil. There are real arguments for managed inflation. Economies are complicated. Deflation, the opposite, has its own brutal history. But understanding it changes how you stand in relation to it. You came into this video thinking your money was sitting still, parked safely, waiting for you. The reality is, it's moving, losing ground. Every day you hold dollars and do nothing with them. The system takes a quiet, invisible cut. The dollar in your pocket today is not the dollar your parents saved. It will not be the same dollar you hand to your kids. The question was never whether inflation would touch you. The question is whether you understood it well enough to do something about it. Now you do.